Now, the budget feedback is rolling in, and the major concern for voters is that the government's cash splash will cause inflation and rates to rise. This is according to the latest Freshwater strategy poll, where nearly 40% of voters think that the budget will force the RBA's hand. Another 46% didn't think it would have any effect on household finances. So to discuss this, let's bring in now Director of Freshwater Strategy, Leo Shanahan. Leo, great to see you again. Look,
thanks, Sharri. Thanks for having me.
What can you tell us about how, because you looked at, there is tax relief for Australians in the budget, both in the form of the $300 energy rebate, also the tax cuts that take effect from the 1st of July. What does your polling tell you about how Australians are planning to spend this money?
Yes, and I don't think that $300 was an accident either given the promise to reduce cost of living by $275, and it's a convenient amount, obviously. But yes, what do people do with this money, Sharri? And combining that with tax cuts, the short answer is most people are going to spend it. How quickly they spend it and what they spend it on is the key. Now, about 35% of people said they were likely to save that money. About another 33% said they'll pay down debt and spend it. Another 20% said they'll spend it on things they usually buy. Now, the really inflationary stuff is to invest it or spend it on things they wouldn't have bought otherwise. Now, the government might have a point here in the sense that it's not inherently inflationary to pay down debt or to spend it on things. Well, to save it is not inflationary.
Of course.
To spend it on things you usually buy, however, that's when that's where we're kind of entering the zone where we're already in a hyperinflation or very inflationary environment, and then we're really dealing with people who are just escaping that wave and letting them continue on in the manner in which they are. That is in an inflationary way, but the government has to do this dance of, giving cost of living relief. They said they would, they've done it, but the extent to which, and there's that key question, will it increase the chance of an interest rate rise? And most people think it will, or at least the majority of respondents at around 40%.
Although you're polling on how people plan to spend it, if it's followed through, that would be good news, and that might mean that it's not as inflationary. Look, let's look at, how Australians feel about energy sources. That this is going to be a key issue in the lead up to the next election. Peter Dutton's put nuclear on the table. What does your research tell us?
Well, look, I think from the get-go, you see solar having support of about 81% of people. So solar is the kind of koala bear at the moment in energy that's everybody still loves.
81% supported.
Yeah, 81%. But natural gas has made a huge breakthrough at around 56% in terms of support. That beats wind. Now, wind support has really dropped off, both offshore, onshore wind, by about 10%. Now, there's obviously a lot of concern, especially in regional areas, about the role of wind. Now, and gas, despite those activist proponents who are coming out, increasingly against gas, trying to compare it with coal, it is increasingly popular, about 56%. Now, the bad news for Peter Dutton is that nuclear is consistently pretty low at about 36% in terms of support, and 31% of people who actually oppose it. So you've actually got a pretty entrenched opposition to it as well. Coal, 33%, 34%, similarly divisive. But the difference with coal is it's in the system, it's there, we rely on it, and at the moment we certainly need it.
Yeah.
Nuclear doesn't have that benefit at the moment.
And what about your overall polling? In the overall political figures, in the primary vote, Labor gained 1 point, I understand, to 32%. The coalition remained unchanged at 40%. So talk us through these figures and what it says about how the Prime Minister is going.
Yeah, look, there's no budget bounce. These are kind of overstated, but, they haven't gone backwards, which is good for the government. But Liberal and National parties
spending billions not to go backwards.
Yeah.
Well, a win.
Labor government on 32% primary vote. That's still relatively low compared to what we have the coalition on, which is 40%. Obviously, on a 2PP basis, the Greens really pushed them up. The Greens have gone up slightly to 14%. So now we're pretty much at status quo on 50-50. Now, if an election were held tomorrow on these numbers, it's more than likely that Labor would form government with about 73 seats, Greens with 4, Liberal National Coalition about 63, and then independents. But this would slip into a minority government.
Yeah,
and then this, of course,
if the coalition managed to get a 40% primary, they'd have a good shot at being in government themselves. But
well, yeah, if they came out with 40%
that would be a remarkable
primary,
attempt. If they managed to get 40%, that would be a very surprising result.
Yeah, the trend is down for the government, and that's clear. And the real question is, how long do they want to risk that trend before going to election? Our analysis says there will be an early election. This will be the last budget under this government.
Yeah, I understand the PM has no intention of going early.
So he says.
All right, Leo Shanahan,
you go if you can win.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Sharri.